Hello, today we'll be talking a little bit about how to demonstrate language awareness. And our goal for today is really to help you improve your ES scores. So sometimes we need that little boost, we need that little tip. And so today we're just going to talk about how to assess our students' language awareness and how to do this more effectively. Okay, so let's get started. When we are talking about demonstrating language awareness, the first thing we need to make sure we do is that we use appropriate vocabulary. And this is quite a challenge sometimes. We can be quite comfortable with the language. We've spoken it all of our lives. So we use idioms and phrasal verbs without even thinking about them. But we do need to be conscious during our class to avoid language that's above the student's level. So of course, the lower the level, the more challenging that is. But it can be done as long as you slow yourself down and think about what you're saying. So you want to try to avoid, like we mentioned, idioms and those phrasal verbs like get off or let's see, I can't think of any others at the moment, but those phrasal verbs that come up that may be confusing to our students. Of course, if we do use one of these terms, don't be afraid to explain it to the students or have the students explain it if you think perhaps some understand and some don't. For example, if you do say something like, oh, I use the idiom, it's raining cats and dogs. Can anyone tell me what that means? So then you're able to introduce that to the entire class. Of course, you also want to be sure to avoid things that might be or cause offense. So keep the culture of the students you're speaking to in mind. And of course, be professional and avoid using slang when possible as well. The next part of demonstrating language awareness is to assess the student's understanding. And I think the most important part of this is not to assume we know what the students know. So don't assume because the vocabulary is on the slide that they know what the slide or what that vocabulary means. For instance, let's say the term enthusiastic is one of the vocabulary words. We may assume that that's a term they know, and so briefly move on or simply ask the question, does anyone have any questions on the vocabulary on this slide? That's a common question. It's easy to ask, and I occasionally ask that question myself. But many teachers have found a different approach effective when it comes to assessing their students' understanding. Rather than asking the question, does anyone have any questions, they choose the terms or the vocabulary and call on the students to give a definition. For example, again, going back to enthusiastic, they may say, we have as one of our vocabulary words enthusiastic. Can anyone tell me what that means? Here, you're switching it a little bit. So most of the time when we ask, does anyone have any questions about? No one has any questions. But here we are almost allowing the students to ask questions by saying there may be a question on this word. Let's get it out in the open. And then by the number of volunteers or no volunteers you have, you can assess their understanding of the vocabulary and then be able to build on that, which is our third aspect. We want to build on our students' vocabulary. We want to make that, have them make progress each class they have with us. And so when an opportunity arises, we want to introduce new vocabulary, specifically based on the class itself. So again, going back to that example of enthusiastic, let's say one of the students was able to give a definition. Have them give that definition rather than you giving that definition. So this would encourage the students to teach each other, really highlighting this part of your lesson and making it enjoyable for everyone in the class. So you want both your higher level students and your lower level students in the same class to all be at the same level by the time this class ends. Specifically, of course, we're talking with group lessons. And so anytime you have several students in the class, we have different levels, you want to make sure that all of them leave with the same vocabulary. So if one student uses a term that you think, wow, that's a great vocabulary, but I don't know if everyone in the class understands it, why not have that student explain it for the class? You could use it as an opportunity to commend the student on their vocabulary and then also have them teach the class. So you could say something like, student A, I loved it when you said that you found your vacation refreshing. Can you explain to the class what refreshing means? So again, you're building on everyone in the class's vocabulary. Another thing you can do is when a student makes a mistake. For example, I've noticed that oftentimes students confuse the terms funny with fun. And so I always stop and take the opportunity, especially in a private classroom. But if the situation came up at a group lesson, I may tackle it in a group lesson as well, to address the difference. So you can say, student B, I noticed that you said that your husband is funny. Do you know the difference between funny and fun? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say one is an adjective and one is a noun. And of course, you can build on that and say, yes, of course, funny is an adjective, fun is a noun, but fun can also be an adjective, and then explain how to use that. Again, you're building on this vocabulary and their understanding of it. So I think these are some fun ways that you can put into practice, hoping to give you a couple good ideas to maybe try out in your next class so that you can better demonstrate this skill. Let me know how it goes.